Welcome back to the channel. Today's topic is about shame. What shame is, how it comes up specifically for women, and how to start working through it. If you don't know me, I'm Casey Lepper. I'm a licensed marriage and family therapist, a trained professional counselor, a spiritual teacher, and a trained coach. And so this channel is for all the people who want to elevate in all areas of their life. And so I give you different topics, insights, and teachings based on my expertise. If you want to see more of it, just hit that subscribe button. So for this video, I'm going to talk a little bit about what shame is to open up the definition and the topic. Then I'm going to share the specific areas that it comes up for women. And these areas are researched and scientifically backed. And I think it's helpful to know how it comes up for women to give us a sense of understanding about ourselves so we can understand and identify our specific areas and triggers, so we can understand what our beliefs are around those areas. And then I'll give you specific tools that you can start to work on overcoming shame. So let's define shame. Shame is the sense that I am not good enough. I am bad. Not that you did a bad thing, not that you made a mistake. It's not guilt. It's I am intrinsically bad or wrong. And so if you think about it as like this little gremlin or this little dark energy, it can grow in so many facets of our life. So it might start as this really dark seed. And then something happens in our life. A parent tells us that we've disappointed them. And they tell us over and over and over, and they're not doing anything to repair it. Then that seed grows into a weed that makes us feel unlovable. Maybe we've experienced some shame when it comes to what we look like. So a lot of us maybe have been told we are big boned or we're unattractive, or if we change this about ourselves, maybe we would be beautiful. And again, that shame energy grows into a weed regarding our physical appearance. And so this is how shame works. It's this energy source that almost acts as a fuel for anything that we feel we're limited by, that we're inadequate with, and any sort of stimulus that happens in our life, like a parent being harsh and cruel to us, not feeling like we could achieve a healthy relationship with someone, feeling like as much as we practice, we weren't good at that sport. All of these early experiences can drive shame. And shame loves to live and grow in the dark. So the less we talk about it, the less we're open about it, the more it has the capacity to grow. And so I know for me, I wasn't really taught how to communicate my feelings of shame early on. And I know a lot of people that I currently work with don't. A big part of my passion and some of the content I put out is how to ensure that we're raising children to be really emotionally attuned and connected so they're able to use that language so it doesn't continue to grow. And so when it comes to shame, it's something that almost all of us have, and it grows on experience. And if we don't do anything about it, it's like that closet that we have that we continue just to throw things in, and we never pull things out, we never throw things away, we never organize it. And all of a sudden it grows, and it can create a crisis in our life. And it can happen when we're, say, in our mid-30s and we've lost a job that we thought we were really good at, and then it breaks our sense of identity. And so shame really is insidious. It has a pattern of collecting on the experiences where we feel really vulnerable or weak. And it's saying that there's a part of you that believes you're bad, that you're a mistake, that you're unworthy. Shame is a huge reason why people have addictions, why they have mental health issues, why there's suicide ideation, anxiety, depression, relationship issues. Shame is really at the center, and I think about it as this energy or this fuel that feeds all of those areas. So it's really important to figure out how does shame come up for you, and then we'll talk about how to deal with it. So this video is specifically about women. How women experience shame has been shown by science and research that it's a little bit more complicated than how men feel shame. So it's not to say men don't feel shame, they do. It's just they experience it in certain ways and we experience it in others. We all have the same general experience of when shame comes over us. Brene Brown, who studied vulnerability and shame at length, talks about this cold wave of shame that comes up over all of us, and that all of us experience that. But the areas of life where shame comes up are slightly different. So research shows that the most common area shame arrives is through our sense of body image and physical attractiveness. We tend to carry a lot of shame when it comes to our body size, how attractive we feel, if we feel like we're up to the standard of what our cultural norm states is attractive. This is very much paralleled in so many of my experiences with women that I work with, and certainly in my own life. So one of the earliest messages I got was that I was fat, and I believed it to a T. And so I just told myself, I'm fat, I'm ugly, I'm big bones, I'm all these things. I had that in my mind forever, and I never shared it to anyone. Doing these YouTube videos for me to actually like say it out loud. I mean, I remember getting vulnerable and talking to my husband about it, but it was just this little seed of inadequacy, and it just grew. And so what happened is I had an eating disorder. I was so critical about what I looked like, and as a result, judged others for what they looked like. So that's just an example of how shame can grow, and it can really disorient oneself. A lot of eating disorders come because someone's holding shame about a physical flaw, a sense that they're not attractive enough, or that their body doesn't fit the size that they really desire. And so I work with a huge range of beautiful women inside and out, and one can be a size 2 and 5'8", and she's holding on to shame as someone who's maybe 5 foot and a little heavier, and she's holding shame. So many women I know are experiencing shame with their physical body and their physical appearance. And I think it speaks to how important beauty is, but with this, you have to focus on the inner beauty. So I know so many women who are so beautiful on the outside, but they lack that twinkle in their eye. They lack that light and that spark within their heart. And that's what gives the physical beauty life. And I may have said it before, but if you think about our heart and our soul being the picture within a frame, and then the frame around it needs to dress it and support it. And yes, it could accommodate the beauty of the portrait, but we're a society that's focused so much on the frame and less about the actual art inside. And so physical appearance is the first and most common way that shame comes up in women. A close second is motherhood. So anyone who's becoming a mother, or maybe you are a mother, probably has had the experience of getting a lot of unsolicited advice and a lot of judgment from other moms. And I think it's an area that we care so much about being good in. And now that there's this wave of being a conscious parent or mindful about what kids are eating, that there's a lot of fear around providing the best environment, being the best mom, being perfect, being able to emotionally regulate and handle it all, that the pressure has built and built and built. And the beauty of living in the time where we have so much knowledge is that we get to see what type of parenting style works best. But the hard thing is when we're carrying shame and we become mothers, it can grow so extraordinarily fast. And so as related to motherhood, it could be your postpartum experience. I've had clients who've given birth and they had to do a cesarean section versus a natural birth. They're holding on to shame for that. They're holding on to shame because connected to number one, they can't get in shape or lose the weight fast enough. They're messing up as a mom. They're working too hard. They're not present enough for their mom. There's so many areas. And so motherhood is really, really strife with a lot of shame. The third is professional competence. So because we've had some incredible movements in their first waves of feminism, most women in our culture, I should say, have the choice to work or to do what they want. They can find what job they want. That pretty much we do have the choice. I know there's limitations. In lots of cases of the people I work with specifically, they have a choice of what they want to do. And so because they have a choice, they push themselves and they want to achieve so much. They want to be president and, CEO, and they push. And when they're getting their identity and their validation from what they're doing professionally, it's like a petri dish for shame. And so they're comparing themselves. A lot of the women I work with happen to be in sales. So they are pushing themselves to hit the highest numbers. If they don't hit those high numbers, they have an existential crisis. They don't feel good enough. They don't feel worthy. And that is all due to shame. So, like I said earlier, it's really important for us to figure out what area, like what channel is shame coming in for you, and then we can figure out how to heal it from that place. Moving on to number 4 is relationships. So sometimes we hold shame around how strong our relationship is. If we've been divorced, that's an area for a lot of shame to come in. If we feel like we've had a string of horrible relationships or really abusive relationships, a lot of shame can be carried with that. Perceived failures, complicated histories, all of that brings a high amount of shame. The 5th is mental health. So there tends to be some mental health issues or diagnoses that a lot of people have shame about. So maybe they've been diagnosed with depression or borderline personality disorder or bipolar 1 or 2. Any of these do have a social stigma. And so there can be a lot of shame to be vulnerable and open up. I've even had clients that I've worked with for so long that never told me about a diagnosis, even when asked, that it took maybe months and months and months of trusting me to feel like they could tell me about their diagnosis without being judged. So mental health issues and diagnoses carry a strong amount of stigma and shame as a result. And the 6th area that shame comes in the most is perfectionism and the fear of failure. So perfectionism can definitely cluster into all the others like body appearance, physical appearance, and motherhood, professional competence. But it's also a standalone because people who tend to be perfectionists don't love the idea of failing. And so as a result, they stay small. They don't want to get into the arena. They don't want to challenge themselves because their identity is wrapped up in trying to be perfect. If one wants to stay perfect, then we're going to be really, really clear about what we can excel at immediately and what we have to learn at. So I'm definitely a perfectionist. I've said in a couple of videos, I think already, but one of the most vulnerable things for me to do was to show up more on the YouTube or the Instagram space because I felt I was opening myself up to criticism or attack or just seeing every single flaw. And that because I didn't think I could just start YouTube and get, 100K followers and all the likes and no hate, I put off this desire to teach in a bigger space. I pushed it off for a long time. I made so many excuses. You can ask my husband, so many excuses about why it wasn't important, that social media is dead, why it wasn't my thing. But really, it was all protecting this fear of failure and the sense of perfectionism. And so shame was creating a story and a narrative in my head that was really sabotaging my growth and my potential. And so those are the 6 areas, the main areas, the most common areas that shame comes up. And so taking a next step and thinking which ones are most prevalent for you. I look at this list and I, in my life, have had 3. So 3 main areas. And so when I look at those areas, I say, what are my beliefs about myself? Like, what's my standard? What does being professionally competent mean? What does being a perfect mother mean? And so ask yourself, what does it mean to be physically beautiful, to be the best mother, to be professionally competent? What does mental health mean to you? What does having a good relationship mean to you? And so just dive into each of those areas that you feel shame comes in for you and ask yourself, what do I think about this? What do I believe about this? And what do I need to update? So if you watch my videos before, a lot of the theme has to do with diving back into understanding what are our personal narratives and experiences. And if we continue having the narrative, we're going to continue to build the same life. So we have an experience, we build a belief on it, and then if we continue to believe it, we'll continue to see it, and that's what will end up happening. And so if we're actively challenging, so maybe at one point in my life, physical attractiveness meant me as a size 2. Well, I had to update that after having babies and after, having the experience of postpartum and, just bodies changing with hormones. And luckily, when I had a child, I updated that and thought, okay, I'm going to exist in a time where I'm not at the level that I was, and that's okay. I expanded my viewpoint and my belief system about it. And I really could step into it and really believe it because I did that work. So to reiterate, you ask yourself, of those 6 areas, how does shame come up for you? What do you think about that area? So what are your thoughts about each one? What are your beliefs about each one? And what do you need to start updating? And then you start to focus on what the update is. So physical appearance, attractive is me at a size 2. I love my body because it's been able to give birth and that I'm strong and that I'm healthy. And if it takes time for me to get back into some of the old clothes, it takes some time for me to get back into the old clothes. And so that's just sharing a little bit of my process. And so this is something that you can sit with, you can journal with, you can reflect on. And this is going to give you a little bit more understanding about what your particular triggers are. So this third piece is being able to overcome the cycle of shame and hopefully be able to make that gremlin either very, very quiet or non-existent. And there's 4 pieces to this. And the first piece is being able to recognize and identify your triggers. If you recognize when shame comes up and you're aware in your body and you say, I'm feeling shame and it's being hit in this area. It's being hit in motherhood. What's the stimulus? Someone told me something that I'm not doing well enough as a mom. And so you just recognize it and you allow it to be and you say, I'm experiencing shame because of this area. And then you take the work to say, what's my old expectation of myself that needs to be updated? If you think being a good mom is being perfect, that's not being a good mom, because then what are you sharing with your kid? That you're only good when you're perfect? Again, that's repeating the cycle. And so this is just a way to identify the trigger, be aware in your body so you have that self-awareness. And then you could start to ask yourself, what do I need to think? What do I need to update? The second part is practicing more critical awareness. And so bridging what I just said, where you're actually asking yourself and you're reflecting, is this a belief that I need to hold on to? Or do I need to update my operating system? Do I need to operate my belief system? Be critical about what pressure you're putting on yourself. And if that's an old story that you just need to reauthor. The third thing is being able to talk to someone about it. So like I said earlier, shame breeds in secrecy and darkness and in isolation. So the second you share your dark secret or your feelings of inadequacy with a safe space or person or group, you're going to feel connected to, you're going to feel understood, and you might even feel a camaraderie with people that have experienced the same thing. So a lot of people have this experience in AA where they shared the most horrible thing they could ever think to share, that it causes them so much shame and so much pain. And then they experience the love, the care, the consideration, and then someone comes to them and says, thank you so much for sharing. That's helped me so much. I was in a very similar position last year. That there's nothing more healing than that, because you've let it out in the open, you risked being vulnerable, and as a result, you either got to help someone, inspire someone, or feel connected to someone because they've experienced the same thing. So reaching out, sharing. And the caveat with this is it needs to be a safe space. So there's some people who aren't safe, that they will judge you, that they will criticize you, that they're not going to give you feedback in the right way. So maybe it's a coach, maybe it's a therapist, maybe it's a loved one, maybe it's a support group. Find people that you feel that are not going to judge you, that are going to hold the space for you, and then give yourself the permission to be courage and share what's bringing you the shame. The final piece is being able to help another person. So the second we help another person with something we've struggled, it redirects and, in my mind, alchemizes all that shame. And so a lot of what I do in private practice is I get to listen to people's stories about what they're succeeding at or what they're struggling with. What are some of the patterns they need to shift around? And if I can offer some support, some guidance, some experience, some insight, especially when it's connected to past pain I've gone through, then that's taken all the negative energy out of that experience and it's turned it into light. It's turned it into goodwill. It's turned it into generosity. And so I think all of us have a beautiful ability to take some of the most damaging, dark, hidden, secretive, shameful, guilt-ridden places of our own being, the shadow. And I think we all have the capacity to turn it into the light, to bring it into the light. And if you follow those 4 steps with each of the things that comes and brings out shame within you, then there's a possibility that you can walk through life with very little shame and maybe non-existent. I can't tell you right now if it's been long enough where I haven't experienced shame. I don't feel like I have in a long, long time, but life throws challenges. So I can't say for sure that I'm coming from the experience of having zero shame, but I know compared to where I was like even 6-7 years ago, it's completely different. It's not even really on the shelf. It's probably like hidden away in a tiny, tiny cage very far away. So that's my hope for you, that you get inspired to seek self-awareness, to change your belief systems, to help yourself have self-compassion, give yourself grace, and importantly, serve another person and help alchemize any shame that you're holding on to. I'll see you guys next time.